Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Founders Grid, sponsored by Gaper.io. Today, we have Tehe Nam. He's the managing director and partner and founder of Storm Ventures. Tehe Nam, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I look forward to participating.
So, 20 years of being a VC, how's the journey been?
It's been a lot of fun despite going through a lot of ups and downs. I mean, we went through, obviously now we're in the COVID crisis, but gone through the financial crisis, the internet bubble meltdown, 9/11. So it just seems like every few years there's always a new crisis.
Yeah, interesting. So, uh, let's discuss COVID, because we can, okay, before discussing COVID, entrepreneurial DNA is something which I like discussing with everyone.
Mhm.
So in your extensive experience of being a VC, you would have come across founders from multiple geographies, right? So now are you able to gauge that one coast is better than the other, or one continent is better than the other, or the entrepreneurial DNA, it's the same? And what are the three qualities in there?
Right. So we're investing aggressively outside Silicon Valley.
Okay.
And that includes whether other parts of the United States or, in fact, we've been investing very well in European startups. And I'm Korean, and so we've invested a lot in Korean companies, and that's all of this has worked out very well. So what we're finding is that entrepreneurialism isn't something which is like a part of just Silicon Valley or part of any place. It's really a select group of people, regardless of where you're from. And what's important is people that are extremely passionate about an idea. So that kind of passion is what's critical because that provides the motivation, the drive, and all that. It enables people to do the things which they're not normally able to do, that passion. And then we look for people that obviously has a lot of integrity because that's how you can hold teams together through hard times. And then lastly, people that are self-aware.
Hmm. Interesting.
Because if you're self-aware, then you're able to get better. I mean, no one's perfect. We're all human beings. We make mistakes. We have to learn. And so self-awareness is an important trait of how to get better.
God, interesting. Unfortunate times because of COVID, so much different from the dot-com bust or the recession, right? So over here, we're talking about recession, plus we cannot go out, right? So
Yes.
post-COVID world is something which a lot of being content is being generated. We're getting news that multiple VCs are rethinking their investment thesis. One vertical will pick from the other one. So how do you see the post-COVID world, and how do you see which sector is thriving compared to the other?
Right. So what I see COVID as is just really accelerating the digital transformation. And so what would normally take 5 years, we're seeing in 5 months. We're seeing this acceleration because of the fact that right now with the shutdown, you can't see people anymore. So I look at it in terms of, let's say, customers and employees. Okay. I know you have a sales background, so you understand the customer side very well. And as a co-founder, you understand the employee side. And so when it comes to customers, in the past, face-to-face meetings were critical. That's how you get to meet them, build bond, trust. As Koreans, drinking together is very important.
Yep.
As part of the closing process, the sales process
Right.
in Korea.
It's
In Korea.
wine and dine, for the
Yeah.
sales.
Yes. So obviously in COVID, none of that is possible with the shutdown. So we're learning how to do a new way of dealing with customers, which is much more efficient, much more based on technology. And that is actually what the future is going to be, because that's how you can serve customers worldwide in a more efficient manner. So we're seeing that on the customer side in terms of how you acquire them, how you nurture, close, and support. The other thing that we're seeing is on the employee side is the common way that people always talk about managing employees and people is, you walk around the office
Mhm.
and you talk to people, see what they say, should be out there to sort of be the leader so they know that, the leader is there, all this kind of stuff that you can do by just walking around the office.
Mm,
Well, clearly in COVID, when they're shut down, you can't walk around the office.
yeah.
And so what we're seeing is the development of new management techniques just within our own office of how we can lead, we can inspire, we can manage people in a distributed workforce.
Mm, interesting, interesting. So, uh, going forward, many VCs have asked their startups, or even the startups have started focusing the need of unit economic positive business model. The discussion has been going around since the WeWork debacle last October,
Yes.
right? And I believe this has kind of like accelerated on the need of, the runways increasing up to 2 years or 2.5 years, right? So are you giving the same advice to your venture companies, and what other advices are you giving that you would like to share with our listeners as well?
Right. So, I mean, as an investor, obviously, longer the runway, the better. Okay. But then you can take that to the extreme and say we should have an infinite runway, you know. Um, so instead, I look at it a little bit differently, and that is obviously with COVID and the shutdown, we're in a major economic recession right now. Okay. And you can see that in the hospitality space, you can see that in the travel space, and so forth. However, what we're recommending to our companies, because our companies are tech companies, primarily B2B software companies, is um, actually look at this as an opportunity and find the new urgent pain. In our portfolio, we're seeing companies like Talk to Us explode right now. I mean, everyone knows about Zoom, with all of a sudden everyone doing video, Zoom has exploded. So
Yeah.
as I mentioned before, what we see COVID as is accelerating the digital transformation to this new world. And so it's now about finding those use cases, that new urgent pain that customers need right now. So in TalkDesk's case, why are they accelerating? Well, what they have is a cloud-based call center. It's got the best call center in the cloud.
Got
Um, and so if you have, let's say, 5,000 agents in a call center room, it may have the best operation, but in COVID, you want that 5,000 to work from home. And TalkDesk can migrate those 5,000 from being in an office into working at home in 24 hours.
Hmm, interesting.
So this is an example of which, the world isn't shutting down, but instead, as we're working remotely distributed, is creating new urgent pain. So the first thing that is really important is, you know, in your business is to find that new urgent pain in this COVID distributed world where people are working remotely, selling remotely. That's number one. The second thing uh, is to come up with a revised forecast based on this new world. So, obviously some customers like in the travel space aren't going to buy, or the hospitality space. So adjust your revenue forecast accordingly. And so with that, you will know what your expense plan needs to be. So after going through other downturns, whether it's the financial crisis or 9/11, I think this idea of just saying, just have cash to infinity is great, but it's really not practical if you're running a company.
True. True. So, last question. We've been all forced to go remote, right? And it's a new learning curve for everyone, be it big companies, small companies. So what steps have you taken at your end, both keeping in check with the mental health and everything, and also, do you think creativity is possible through Zoom? What happened to the old thoughts of pizza meetings and things like that in the box meeting? So
Right. So we decided to do something controversial, is that when our lease expires in October, we're going to go fully distributed.
okay,
Um, so we are, and part of it is the fact that, we are investors in new B2B technology, right? And so it helps by doing this. We're going to feel some pain. I know it's not going to be easy. We're going to feel some pain. But feeling that pain will help us become better investors in what we should invest in.
Got
So that's the first thing that we mentally have decided. And so, it's like this part of American history where Cortez burned all the boats and therefore made the people more passionate in where they're going. So by doing this, we are now committed to figuring out how to work remotely, how to work distributed. Okay. So that's the first thing, is that internally we have made that commitment that this is what we're going to do. As a result, what it means is, how we work with customers, which are founders, will need to change. And in that side, I think the changes happen. In other words, all first meetings are going to be over video. And as I mentioned, we invest a lot outside the Bay Area,
yeah,
so video is going to happen anyway.
yeah,
So I think, that's going to be for first meetings. And then follow-on meetings are going to be where you want to build relationships. And what we found is you don't really build relationships in a conference room.
yeah,
You build relationships over dinner, over lunches, coffee. That's where you build relationships. You rarely find you build relationships in a conference room, unless it's like a whiteboarding
yeah,
session or
yeah,
something like that. Okay. So that's going to be on the customer side. On the employee side, what you mentioned about, collaboration, spontaneous brainstorming is absolutely critical, and that's what we need to do. And so we're going to explore many different ways to how to do that digitally,
yeah,
and also how to figure out how to do it, socially as well too. But there again, it's probably less so in internal conference rooms.
mm, got it.
Um, but it's gonna come out with, what's the right process, what's the right technology, what's the right culture, and then what's the right people of making this work. But on the people side, I feel pretty good because all of us are fairly independently driven people.
Yeah,
And so I think we have the core DNA to make this thing successful. And plus, as I said, we are now committed.
yeah. You have to be. Yeah, yeah, right. But thank you so much for being on the show. I'm sorry, my marketing team tells me I have to keep it within 10 minutes. Otherwise, we could have talking for at least 1 hour for sure. But thank you so much for being on the show. Take care. Take care of yourself and stay safe.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed this very much.